Yo, what's up, my radical hip kids? What is going on, my skibbity sigmas? You ready for the most radical tubular action you ever seen in your life? Yeah, boy! That's too kind for me. Action cartoons are kind of a dying breed nowadays. Sure, shows will have action here and there, but I'm talking full action. Most modern cartoons tend to focus more on the overall adventure and story rather than people punching each other. These action shows you can count in one hand, and this got a decent amount, but Cartoon Network was definitely the king of it. Their flagship show was all about looking cute, but being weirdly violent. Their more adventure-based dramedies like 100 Times the Universe still lean very heavily into action, more so than their other shows of their ilk. There's no anime with a great take on the classic franchise taking it to greater heights. Samurai Jack basically reinvented action in Western animation, and that's just the stuff they directly own. There's also all the DC shows, Totally Spies, Clone Wars. It's the place for action. That is, of course, glancing over the kingpin of action shows in CN, Ben 10. With the main continuity lasting almost a full decade, with the series as a whole making it almost 20 years of continuous content, there's no doubt that Ben 10 is the golden boy of action in CN. Who is carrying action cartoons for its run? The thing is, the overwhelming success of the Ben 10 franchise is kind of a disadvantage to other action shows. Why put all your eggs in a new shiny basket when you can have a giant golden chicken spitting out eggs rapid fire? I think I messed up this metaphor. So with Ben 10 making so much money that it landed on the top 50 highest grossing franchises of all time, the only CN show to do so, beating out stuff like Simpsons, Halo, Scooby-Doo, My Little Pony, Shrek, Sonic, and Sesame Street, it's definitely ridiculously successful. So why bother building up a new franchise in a dying trend like action cartoons? That's the question that befell 4 shows. And the answer was cancellation. Some cartoons came right around the action problem by being part comedies. Others, though, they were just full action. But they didn't have Grandpa Max in it. So, do they even stand a chance? These shows are Mega XLR, Sega Saturdays, Generator Rex, and Symbiotic Titan. These got buried hard by CN. Only remembered by a few minor things. Ironically enough, 2 are only remembered because of Ben 10. But hey, how are they on their own? Well, I want to dive into these 4 shows to see if the world is missing things that don't have magic watches and cool aliens and Dr. Animal. So join me as we look into CN's forgotten action shows. A year before the water landed next to young Ben Tennyson, a mecha from the far future is flung into the horrific year of 2004. Landing in a junkyard to be found by one Coop, a lazy food and gaming obsessed nerd who modifies it, and fortunately for the whole world, now needs to be the pilot of it alongside his failed ladies man best friend Jamie, and the only competent character in the show, a pilot from the future named Kiba. Protect the world from invading Squid Space Army using their new mechas, the Megas XLR. Of the 4 shows I'll discuss today, Megas is certainly the most notable. Part of the golden age of CN elevates this above shows around it. And it's part of CN City. Coop Canali has beef with Fred Jones. Someone say Fred Jones? Should be Splitless Man's molecules across every single universe in 11-dimensional space that we are spiring. What? Ah! But while certainly well respected in some circles, it's definitely not making many best CN shows lists. Mostly because CN tried to bury it hardcore. It's written off for tax reasons, meaning CN legally cannot air it or stream it anymore. The thing is, this show desperately needs a second shot, because this is an anime parody. Anime in 2004 is significantly different from now, and while they do the obvious jokes of airhead idiotic Sailor Moon parodies, or an Uncommon Voltron Force, where one of the members only speaks in incoherent sound effects, provided by Alan Young of all people, that's the original Scrooge McDuck by the way, how different anime is now. It'd be really cool to see what they do with it. Despite that, you can tell the creators of the show genuinely love what they're parodying. But while this whole show is a riff on mecha anime, it's also done knowing, to turn a phrase, that we all dig giant robots. In terms of action, the show sets itself apart from being a lot more goofy in terms of its fights. Coop and Jamie are fighters, so they tend to bungle around in fights doing whatever they think would look cool. To their credit, it pays off. This runs on a Monster of the Week formula, finding a wide variety of creatures from the aforementioned squid monster aliens to an evil version of the main cast, highly intelligent robot keeps getting stronger, also constantly getting ducked on, an evil alien space pirate who has a weird kink for red hair. Hope he never discovers Clifford. Bruce Campbell's decapitated head that references every film the guy's been in, while also being referenced to MODOK for some reason. Sonic the Hedgehog. The 3 main characters are all great counters to each other. Coop being the loud and fun-loving main lead, Jamie being the Metza frick-up while thinking he's the coolest thing alive, and Kiba, a nice straight man who takes everything super seriously, as she's from the future and an actual warrior. The final episode, which I previously discussed in my video on my favorite CN episodes, does a great job of actually taking itself somewhat more seriously, showing an alternate future where Coop was evil. It's really cool. It shows that this show really could go grand when given the chance. It's so dope that it even made New Jersey look good. This is a really fun show. I totally understand why it's the only thing cartoon anime fans can actually both love. Well, the only thing that they can both love without anime fans also claiming it's actually anime. I dig giant robots, and you dig giant robots. So clearly, y'all would dig the show. Secret Saturday is the main reason I'm making this video, I'm gonna be real. I want to talk about this show for the longest time, so dang nabbit, I'm gonna do so. This is focused around the Saturdays, a family whose task is keeping cryptids safe and secret, while uncovering a conspiracy with a horror talk show host who's attempting to control all cryptids on Earth. This show is absolutely fantastic. The parents, Doc and Drew, are a super loving couple. They're also great parents to Zach. I mean, they gave him a Komodo dragon. My parents never did that. That's why I'm such a failure. They're really cute together in what we see. Plus, Zach himself is a great take on the prodigy kid hero. Since why he's desperate to go on these adventures, we later find out that he's basically a god. He doesn't actually want to be this powerful, and how he tends to struggle with it. The show is basically based on action cartoons of the 80s, and lovely tributes to them while also involving the medium to something special. Cryptids are a pretty popular subculture nowadays, but back in 2008, I doubt many people even knew the term. It's especially cool when they really dig deep here. They don't focus on your standard Bigfoot or Nessies. It's all about the Zing Zing and the Bunyip and the Amarok. This show actually got me to cryptids, and I really appreciate that. The show can get weirdly dark. There's a recurring villain who's a cryptid eater, who later turns his eyes and mouth to Zach, a scientist who is mutated into Yeti that seems nice, but is actually a vengeful murderer, and of course, the main villain, Vivi Argost. I help about this guy a lot, and I'll never forget one of my friends decided to look into him. No, I tend to help a villain, they're usually kind of aesthetic and silly, like Adam Wheeling the Chameleon. Only to find out, oh, he's kind of Hitler, isn't he? Argost has all its charm and hamminess of an 80s cartoon villain, but with one change. He's competent, he wins a lot, he's always planning ahead, and he's got a massive kill count. Those skulls are on his studio set? Yeah, they are from Walmart, he got those the natural way. Not to mention killing the parents of Drew and her super rad and awesome brother Doyle, who are also, by the way, voiced by Nicole Sullivan and Will Fiedler respectively. That can't be a coincidence. He just lasted off when he's converted by them, because, hey, he can't remember every scream. Argost straight up tells Zach when he offers an apprenticeship that he plans on killing him later, but he's Argost. And they're gonna do whatever he says. The action isn't as grand as some of the other shows here, but they really take great use of the unique abilities every character has to be really impressive. This is a really fun show. One that desperately needs more love outside the kind of mediocre Omniverse episode. I literally can't look up at this show without 90% of the results being about it. Watch the show. Do for Argost. He should have been a Thomas Sexy Man. Life isn't freaking fair! While far from my personal favorite show, Generation X might be the most objective and best cartoon I've ever seen. From the pacing, to the action, to the humor, to the characters, not a single miss to this show, or something I would consider a low point. Apparently based on a comic, don't feel bad, you never heard of it, it lasted 2 issues. Generation X is about a world infected with nanites. Nanomachines that affect every living being on Earth, and cause random horrific mutations. One boy with amnesia, Rex Salazar, has the ability to control his mutations, utilizing them to create various weapons from across his body, while also having the ability to cure nanites. This gets him in league with Providence, a group of highly advanced people attempting to protect Earth from threats. Rex wants to live a normal 15-year-old life, but also has to deal with his superhero responsibilities, and trying to piece together his life. And what happened with the event that caused the Evos? What happened with his parents in memory, and if there's any connection. The show is just flat out phenomenal, dude. With Rex being able to turn his body into any weapon he wants, coming from the same studio as Ben 10, you know you're in for some great action. A lot of Western shows are afraid to go too brutal with action, but this fully embraced how off this world can be, with straight hands being played brutally, to the really creative powers some cast has, like Von Kleist's stretchiness and strange body, or Breach's portal powers. This show always ones up itself. The people who are punching each other are just as great. Rex could easily be a Red Ben, but they make him instead a lot more grounded. He loves his powers and isn't afraid to throw hands, but in the end, you can tell he just wants to live a normal life. Agent 6 is the coldest character in fiction. So they try to make him goofy, give him a few L's in fights, but that does nothing to make him any less cool. Bobo is well needed comic relief. Doc Holliday is a fun addition that could easily feel like they just need a token woman, but she still feels capable in her own right and is the only thing keeping her team together. And White Knight acts as the Walter Cecil of the show, the man willing to do anything to ensure their safety, even if it dooms a large amount of people. Also, he's my glorious king, J.K. Simmons. Villain-wise, Von Kleist is a fantastic suave villain who takes a lot of notes from Argost, a family-killing monster with plans for world domination that's always thinking ahead, complete with the same charm and happiness to keep him constantly likable. The only thing that holds him back is his costume. Did anyone wear this to school on Halloween? There's gotta be someone out there, right? There's also this henchman that he killed off, hated that betrayal so much that he revived himself just to take on Kleist again. The more extreme yet more charismatic replacement of White Knight, psychologically tortured Breach, who opens herself up more and more to becoming an ally and turns a love interest to Rex. A gangster rock guy who kidnaps kids to do his bidding, a businessman who claims to be able to cure Evos, in actuality an Evo slaver, and John Cena. This is before he really got into acting, but shockingly, he does a really good job as an Evo hunter, determined to take all the creatures out after the death of his wife at the hands of one. Sadly, though, he only voices him once. John Nolan takes over after. The show knows how dark this premise is, and always treats it seriously, but never too seriously to where it's not fun. For every messed up villain and horrific transformation, there's a fun one-liner and some kicking rock music. The story gradually evolves like the Evils themselves, slowly tying the cast together as more light is shed on the event and Rex's backstory, all culminating in the grand finale. I'm vaguely aware of this show, though, it's because of the crossover with Ben 10. I covered in my video on insane crossovers. This might very well be the best crossover there is in animation. A great mix of both franchises that plays heavily into the strengths of both, while including some nice fan service like upgrade and enhancing Rex tech. The show really did well for itself, managing 60 episodes, but I do feel like it was kind of destined for more. CN certainly had hope for it with all the toys it got, but when you came out the same years of Adventure Time and the regular show, two shows cited as reviving CN and getting a massive fan base for both kids and adults, alongside a massive toy empire, alongside releasing the same year as Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, arguably the biggest Ben 10 show at the peak of its popularity, a franchise proven to print money, and being created by the same people as the show, this show mutating into cancellation was inevitable. Still, Generator Rex is near flawless, and I'd love to see more of it. The theme song goes hard too, by the way. While CN was a big action moneymaker, Samurai Jack was about to put Cartoon Network on the map for action. Its slow burn stories with precise action made it the standout for action literature animation, and its creator Genndy Tartakovsky got to show off even more with the 2D Clone Wars shorts. But after a long absence, after the cancellation of those in Dexter's Lab, Genndy finally got to work his magic again, mostly to help the dying network back in 2010. God, that was a great year for CN, because it gave us Symbiotic Titan. An easy way to put this is that it's a more serious Megas. Three heroes who control a giant mech have to balance their quirky personal lives while also being monster-fighting mech pilots. And in the end, the show gets written off for tax reasons and can no longer air. This time, the host star Elena, the princess of an outer space kingdom, was reduced by ruin by an evil general, her loyal bodyguard Lance, and their friendly robot companion Octus. The three have to balance a normal team life with their action-packed shenanigans, with flashbacks and teases to eventually returning to their kingdom. While this show is a lot of fun, it's one of the most held back by being cut short. At least the other three could come to a decently satisfying conclusion. This show, coming in the shortest of the ones discussed here, is split very much down the middle of being solely based around slice-of-life teen drama and the more action-heavy story-driven part. They clearly had high hopes for this, but executive meddling, heavy competition made this show fumble. At least fumble for being a true masterpiece. As on its own, it's still a great show. The main three are all fun characters. Actually, my favorite as a monotone, helpful robot who goes on the most fun adventures in the more slice-of-life parts, like his definitely not straight interaction with his dumb jock Gabriel, voiced by Patrick Star. Well, the only reason this show is known. Right here, this working scene is the only thing people quite literally ever talk about, because not only is this really great show around it, I'm also really tired of the mindset of, what? Sexual content in a kid's show? How insane! As if literally every single bit of animation doesn't have adult humor. It's almost like adults write it. But also, this scene leads to a really sweet scene between Octus and the girl, where they get to know each other better, but gets overlooked because you can't throw that into a tweet with a clickbaity tagline. The action is pretty good monster versus big robot stuff, but lacks the special factor that all the other shows CN has. It's not comedic like Megas, not intricately thought out as Jack, not as varied and creative as Sega Saturdays or Rex or the Ben 10 franchise, or as shockingly brutal as Powerpuff Girls. Just kind of good. Honestly, I think the best action is without the mechs. Like the flashback where Lance fights this traitor to the Empire with using only his hands, blades, and jumping around the arena. I think the main villain, General Mondula, is pretty interesting, as he's mainly kept in the shadows, mostly because he's on a separate planet from the main cast and the short length. But he's probably intimidating. I remember hearing a fan theory where he's not actually evil, as he was once loyal to the Empire and suddenly turned, with the hat he's wearing being speculated being the real villain. If we never see Mondula's eyes, but we do see his bayoneted tier legs. We also see the I Am hat doing things it clearly shouldn't, like the eye move on its own or fire a laser. Maybe we'll get an answer to this, or more of the show at all, but with it exclusively being seen as a booty quake show, I still don't think we'll see these guys again. And those are the 4 shows I want to talk about. There's more I could do, but I want to keep this just CN studio shows. Ones that air on CN instead of Adult Swim or streaming, and ones that focus primarily on action instead of a blend of humor and action like Mao Mao or KKO. All 4 of these shows are fantastic, definitely deserve your attention. If you want a quick least favorite list, with the knowledge that I love all the 4, Symbiotic Titan, Megas XLR, Generator Rex, and Sega Saturdays. Rex is objectively the best, but will always be biased towards Saturdays. Sadly, these only remain relevant for crossovers or pole dances, because these are great additions to CN lineup, and deserve their love in the often overlooked pantheons of action cartoons. Dude, that was totally bodacious! Action like that is so randomly tubular, get my dad love me again! I hit an old lady walking the street yesterday and I felt nothing.
All I ask is a small amount of funding for a dream. My very own television show.